everybody, and welcome to what is a new series. And this new series is going to be called Actors Who Paint. Now, why, you ask, am I going to do something like this? A lot of people in the acting profession are also very interested in the visual arts, which I suppose when you think about it is kind of natural anyway. But it is true that a disproportionate amount of actors tend to paint when on their downtime, when they're between jobs. So I'm particularly happy this morning to have my very first guest, and that is David Herlihy. Now, for those of you who've been living under a rock, David has had a very long career in acting, ranging from theatre to TV to cinema, and has acted in such things as Kin, The Clinic, for which he was nominated an IFTA, Veronica Guerin, What Richard Did, Adam and Paul, and a huge number of other films and series. So let's go straight over and say good morning to David. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning, Alan. Good, thank you.
And
Very
you are
well.
one of these people who actually do paint.
Yes.
So when did all this start, David?
Well, I always painted as a child,
Hmm.
and I always had an interest in art from a young age. Um, but I would say I left. I stopped painting when I left school. I
Yeah.
mean, I did art up to the Leaving Cert, and I had a great relationship with my art teacher, and um, so there was I had a great passion for art and art history as well, because that was part of the
All
syllabus in
right.
the Leaving Cert. And I
Yes.
remember I went to I was talking to somebody the other night. I went to see the Rusk exhibition in 1977
Did you?
in the
Yeah.
Municipal Gallery,
Yeah.
and somebody recommended that I go,
Yes.
and so I went, and I had a great discussion with the teacher about it, whatever. But I was kind of being exposed to a lot of art at the time, particularly at that stage, conceptual art, modern art, all that kind of stuff. And
Yes.
I found that very difficult to engage with.
Mm.
I was sort of I was intrigued by it, but I felt it was somehow, yeah, I knew that I'd come back to engaging with it later, but I realized that again it was I was playing music in
Hmm.
my teens, so
Yes.
music started to take precedence. So when I left school, I kind of gave up painting,
Right.
and I
Right.
didn't return to it. Then I became an actor then in my early 20s,
Mm.
and I didn't return to painting until my late 40s,
All
and
right.
that was purely by accident, because I met an artist at a fair
Mm.
who was like yourself, was an artist who taught,
Yes.
and she was chatting to Honor Heffernan, the musician at the stall, and who I know.
Yeah.
And Honor said if you ever wanted to take classes,
Mm.
she would be a great woman to go to. She said, I've been to her myself. I've gone to classes. So I
Yeah.
took the cue and I started classes. So that was about 10 years ago. I started attending class.
Oh, only 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And tell me about acting now. Let's start at the beginning.
Right.
What drew you to that and what sort of course did that take?
I was very, I was very fortunate, really. I was sent to classes as a child. My father sent myself and my sister to drama classes as a child. He says it was for my sister because she was really shy and I wasn't so shy.
Mm.
Um, but I took to it like a duck to water, and absolutely,
Yes.
realized, yeah, this is something I really want to do, in terms of a hobby.
Yes.
So I got immersed in that. They cast me in a couple of adult, professional productions. So I got a
Yep.
taste for that when I was very young. I was in the Olympia in a Brian Friel play called The Gentle Island, which was a world premiere of a new Brian Friel play. And
Yes.
so I was in rehearsals with Brian Friel, um, all these young actors, Bosco Hogan, Eamon Morrissey, etc.
Mm.
And so that was my first taste of
Yes.
acting and theatre. And
Hmm.
it kind of, a seed was planted that I thought, my father was very insistent then. Well, that's all well and good. Now you're going into secondary school
Hmm.
and time to put that behind you.
Yeah. Right.
Get on with your studies, as it were, which
Yes.
obviously was understandable, because it was beginning to take more and more of my time, because I was getting called to auditions as a child actor.
Yeah.
So a line was drawn under that. And then when I left school and I started working, I
Mm.
went back to which the classes I'd been doing were what was called the Brendan Smith Academy,
Oh
and
yeah.
I went back there when I left school, and I
Mhm.
did 2 years of that, and then I decided I wanted to go to London, for no particular reason, except London seemed like a good place to go, and I started classes over there as well.
All right. Okay.
I was working full time. I was in the civil service in London,
Are
So
you?
I was doing amateur drama, and then I started, continued to do classes, and then about a year and a half later, 2 years later, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go professional. I'm going to give this a go. To which most people thought, you're what? You're giving up a permanent pensionable job, and I just thought, no, this is what I want. And I literally just, I remember giving in my notice and thinking, yeah, I'm going to give this a go, and I'm going to give this a few years and see how I get on. And it kind of, it took off very slowly, but I
Yeah.
managed to make my way into the profession over a period of about 2 or 3 years.
So did you start really on stage rather than on screen?
Yeah, you
Mm.
know, I yeah, stage was,
Mm.
you know, it's very hard to imagine now back in the, if you're not of a particular generation, to go back to
Yes.
the when I started in the sort of early to mid 80s. So there was people like Neil Jordan were coming on stream, and there were a couple of independent Irish filmmakers, but there was no living to be made, certainly from an acting point of view, in TV and film. There was a certain amount of drama being made in RTE, but the majority of work was in theatre,
Yeah.
and you could
That's,
make a living as a theatre actor. So that was, and I loved it. You know what I mean? The live performance was what I lived for, and TV and film were great when you got them,
yeah.
but you couldn't rely on that. Whereas it's different now. It's really the other way around now.
I
TV and
was just
film,
going to think, I was thinking
yeah,
that maybe it's the
yeah.
reverse now.
Went into the Abbey Theatre
Hmm.
as an extra, as a walk on.
Yes.
And I regard that as kind of, well, I'd say my apprenticeship began when I left the civil service, really, because that's when I started acting as a profession. But going into the Abbey was the beginning of a whole different experience for me, because that was, as I say, it was like an apprenticeship. It was like you were going in at the sort of at the bottom level,
Yes.
but you were
Yes.
being immersed in the whole atmosphere, the culture, and the history of the Abbey. And you were working with I was working with a lot of actors who at that stage were, they were very, very high profile Irish actors. I mean, Ray McAnally, to name but one.
Yes. Yes.
So my first play at the Abbey, I was working alongside Ray McAnally, and yeah, I couldn't believe it. My luck. I mean, it was a wonderful time.
And when you say you were in the civil service in
Yeah,
London, when you decided to hand in your notice, did you stay long in London before you came back to the Abbey?
I was. See, I had my notice in 1984, and I went straight. There's a paper, I don't even know if it's still in existence, called The Stage and Television Today,
Okay.
and at the back of it, there's a lot of classifieds, right? And
Yes.
that's where they used to advertise for theatre jobs. Now,
Hmm.
these were non-equity theatre jobs mostly, because getting the equity card was the dream, that you would get the card and then you could enter formally to the profession. But they were like hen's teeth. They were very, very hard to get.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I could talk now at length about that, about how it used to be, but
Yes.
we probably better not to go down that rabbit hole.
No, no, maybe not. No.
But by the same token, so I started doing fringe theatre in London,
Mhm.
which meant, that you were doing shows that were non-equity shows,
Yes.
with professional actors, some of whom were equity members, some of whom, but it didn't matter, because you weren't working in an equity house, but it was profit share. So if you made any money, it was divvied out among the cast. I never saw a penny in those 2 years, but I did about 3 or 4 different shows,
Yes.
and I was getting a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But then what happened was, I went to see a show in the Gate Theatre in London. It's a pub theatre. Well, it's a very prominent theatre now, but it was, at the time, it was just, it was a theatre over a pub, and there
I
are
see.
many of those in London,
Other. Yeah.
like the King's Head in Islington. But anyway, there was an Irish company performing a play called Mr. Joyce is Leaving Paris, and it was directed by Ronan Wilmot. And Ronan was living in London, and Ronan had his own company.
Yeah.
And on stage, among others, was Dave Duffy, who has been for many years in Fair City. And
Yeah.
Dave had literally just started acting. He was a musician. And
Hmm.
another actor who I got to know, called Sean Lawler.
Right. Hmm.
So Sean and myself got together. We used to go to the same gym, and I met him one day, and I said, "Look, I saw the play. It was wonderful. I was really, and I haven't seen Irish actors, on stage in London before, and
Yeah.
particularly in a lovely little venue like that." So we met, and he had a friend with him, and I recognized the friend, this very good-looking, dark-haired man, and I said, "That man looks like somebody I've seen on television in Ireland, Gabriel Byrne."
Oh,
So,
really?
so I was
Yeah.
sitting opposite Sean and Gabriel. It was one of those moments where I was getting advice and I was listening, attentively. And what they were both saying to me very clearly was, you know, return to Dublin, young man. You will not get your equity card here. You
Mm,
will have a much better chance of getting into the profession back in Dublin. And they gave me names, they gave me telephone numbers. They were very supportive, particularly Sean. I mean, Gabriel was already up and running with his career. He was
yeah.
starting to make movies in London.
Hmm.
But Sean and myself became very good friends, and so I got a lot of help from him. I went back to Dublin, and I basically started knocking on doors and becoming a nuisance. And
And you did very well in it.
eventually, Tomás Magana, who was the caretaker director in the Abbey at the time,
Yeah.
gave me a walk-on part, and he was very helpful to me. I always regard Tomás as my first, and I've had a few. I've been very privileged as a mentor,
Yes.
and he
Yes.
really took a great interest in me and was very helpful to me. So
Yeah.
Sean and Gabriel, well, Sean particularly was the linchpin in encouraging me to go home. So coming back to Dublin was absolutely crucial for me.
And it worked out.
It did, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I was very fortunate that within 6 months, or within 6 months of return to Dublin, 9 months, I graduated from doing walk-on parts in the Abbey to getting, cameo and small character parts.
Mm.
I got a season of plays with Joe Dowling, who had just left the Abbey, who was in the Gaiety doing Death of a Salesman, Philadelphia, Here I Come, and then a hugely successful production of Juno and the Paycock with Donald McCann and John Cavan and Geraldine Plunkett in the Gate Theatre, when it was about 2 years into Michael Colgan's reign in the Gate.
Yeah.
And it was a massively successful productions. And then the same year, I did another, what turned out to be a landmark production of A Whistle in the Dark with Sean McGinley, Godfrey Quigley, and some of the Druid Company, with Gary Hines, who was directing her first show outside Druid at the Abbey Theatre, and I was part of that. And it went on from there. It was a magical year.
Did your acting career on stage ever take you abroad?
Yes, many times.
Many times. Okay.
Yeah. Well, my first trip, I went back to London in 1989. I did a play. A new play by Frank McGuinness called Carthaginians,
Hmm.
which was about Bloody Sunday. And I was playing a young gay Derry boy,
Hmm.
who was basically in the middle of, all the troubles. It was a very successful production, and subsequently was invited to the Hampstead Theatre in London. Now, it was a new production. It wasn't the same production, but I was invited to join the cast,
Yeah.
the same director. So I went to the Hampstead in London with Carthaginians.
Mm.
And out of that, I was very fortunate to get a London agent.
Hmm.
And then on the foot of that, early 1990, I did a production of Anna Christie by Eugene O'Neill with Natasha Richardson
Oh, wow.
in The Young
Brilliant.
Vic.
Yeah.
I was playing a leading role opposite Natasha Richardson, and then following that, I was in Three Sisters that the Gate had transferred to London,
Hmm.
and I was doing Tennessee Williams in another theatre, later that year, and then I was a member in the following year I was a member of the National Theatre,
Mm.
and then I stayed on in London for a while, and then I started getting work in America. I worked
Mm.
off Broadway, and then I eventually ended up getting a Broadway show, a production of Translations, which Noel Pearson produced with again a
Oh,
predominantly American cast, because I was privileged to be able to do it because at that stage I'd been one of the lottery winners of a green card, which I didn't know what to do with, but it turned out to be very, very helpful because I
yes.
couldn't have otherwise done that job. And
No,
so
no,
I got
no.
to go to Broadway with
Yeah.
Translations in, I think, 1995.
Yeah.
And that was, as you can imagine, an extraordinary experience.
Do you have any particular production that you've appeared in, that was really, really something very special that you said, gosh, I've arrived. This is it.
I think, well, as a young actor, it would have definitely been Whistle in the Dark.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, I suppose, and, into my 30s, yeah, it would have been maybe, I did a premiere of another Tom Murphy play called The Wake in
Right.
1998.
Hmm.
And it was based on a novel that Tom had written called The Seduction of Morality. And there was a part in that I thought, if this was ever dramatized into a play, I'd love to play this part. And I wasn't the first choice, but it came my way, and that was an amazing experience. That was a wonderful. And then was in one of the first productions of The Weir by Conor McPherson,
Yeah.
which again I worked on in the UK, and
Hmm.
then went to Broadway for
Yes.
three months with that, and toured Australia. So I suppose between yeah, certainly at that stage of my career, so it was the Wake and the Weir were
Mm.
big. We went to Edinburgh with the Wake.
Hmm.
I was touring with the Weir. We went to Edinburgh with the Wake. I went to Broadway with the Weir, all in the same year.
Good
So it
Lord.
was the Weir, the
Yeah.
Wake, the Weir. But no, I must say,
Mm.
I would say, yeah, the Weir on Broadway was probably the biggest for me at that
Yeah.
time. Yeah, for sure. Big
Okay.
time. Yeah,
So,
wonderful.
so we're still on the stage. What about film?
I was lucky enough. I said that first year. I said when I kind of really started to get work in Dublin in 1986. I was on stage for that all that year. Uh, um, and in the meantime, I had gone out to RTE with my CV and photo because I heard they were hiring a new character in Glenroe, and I was encouraged to go out. I didn't have an agent. I said, go, you should go out and put your CV and photograph into the in tray in the office. And I literally went out in the lashing
Yeah.
rain. I remember thinking to myself, Jeannie, Mac, I
Yeah.
don't want to get up and go. I was living in Glasnevin with my parents. I had to get two buses across town. I said, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this? But I
Yeah.
did it, and I dropped it in, and I got a call, and they said, yeah, it's late in the day. We've seen most of the people, but we have a slot for you. So
Hmm.
they saw me for this part. I got two recalls, and then a screen test, and I was told it's down to two, yourself and another actor. And I thought,
Hmm.
oh yeah, so near and yet so far. And
I
then I got
know.
a
Yeah.
call about 2 weeks later, said the part's yours. So I had a running part
Yeah.
in Glenroe, which was a hugely obviously successful series at the time.
Yes.
And so alongside my theatre career, I was doing Glenroe for a number of years then as well.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
which was amazing. Again, a
That's
wonderful experience. Again, for the young, that was my first time be in front of a camera. I was a total greenhorn. I was literally like learning as I went along. But
yeah.
I was very fortunate that again I was in the company of great actors, and
Yes.
like Mary McAvoy, Mick Lally, Joe Lynch. Joe was hugely helpful to me,
Yeah.
and a lot of
Really.
senior actors: Cyril Cusack, David Kelly. I mean,
Yeah.
just extraordinary company to be in. Again,
Amazing.
I was literally soaking it all up as I went along.
The other one, of course, that you I presume spent quite a bit of time on was the clinic. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
How long was that?
I was in the clinic for 3 seasons. Yeah.
Yes, three
And that
seasons.
was, again, wonderful.
Yeah.
Really another fantastic group of actors, and a very successful series. I mean, I came into the series, I think it was the third series. So it already had made a
Yeah.
big impression, and, was doing very well in the ratings, etc. Yeah.
And any other in terms of films, because I know you've worked in one film with Lenny Abramson,
Yeah.
who's been on this particular YouTube channel. Um, but does anything stand out in those sort of films as against series?
I actually didn't make wasn't in my first film until I was, in my late 30s.
Yeah.
And I did Veronica Guerin with Kate Blanchett that Joel
Yes.
Schumacher directed. And
Yes.
then I got a part in Adam and Paul, which was Lenny Abramson's first feature film.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, which Mark O'Halloran wrote. So I had a lovely character part in that, and that was great. I mean, because Lenny, I'd heard about Lenny. I knew he was he'd done very well. I think he was a commercials director for a long time,
Mm.
and he'd done some very highly acclaimed short films. But this
Yeah.
was his first feature film. Like, I knew that there was something special about it because,
Mm.
again, the subject matter, it was like about two heroin addicts on the streets of Dublin, and it was a kind of like a day in the life, a kind of fly on the
Yes.
wall. Because Mark is such a wonderful writer, and again, he was cutting his teeth. I think that was his first feature film. So, and Lenny, and so that they collaborated a number of times. That was their first collaboration, and
Yeah.
you knew there was something special. I couldn't quite figure out, I couldn't visualize the film. I mean, I read
Okay.
the script and I thought this is interesting, but it was only when I finished it and I was in town one day having a coffee in Dublin Crescenzi, and an actor came in and said, "I've just seen Adam and Paul." And I said, "Oh, right." And I wasn't sure what was the next
Yeah.
sentence.
Wasn't that coming
It's
next? Yeah.
amazing. And I was going, "Oh, really? Yeah, oh, God, yeah, yeah. No, really. And it's fantastic. You were great." And I was going, "I'll take that." Sort of, but it was very obvious that Lenny
Mm.
had an extraordinary talent,
Mm.
because he had carried the vision of that film in his head, and he could obviously, as any director has to have in advance, has to know pretty much how he wants the film to look.
Mm.
But when I saw the final product and I saw the music that he had attached to it and the way he'd filmed it and the edit and the central performances, I mean, Mark O'Halloran and Tom Murphy
Yeah.
as the two heroin addicts were just
Yes.
extraordinary.
They were. Yeah.
And so I realized, oh, you're actually part of, a sort of majorly sort of a pioneering Irish film, and
Yeah.
it was a privilege to be part of it. But it never surprised me that Lenny, obviously very quickly started to become this incredibly successful director because, yeah, he just, as I was saying earlier about Tomás McAnna,
Yes.
who was a great help to me as a young actor. Lenny seemed to have that ability, and obviously, as it turned out, particularly with actors in general, but particularly with young actors.
Hmm.
I remember, like, I had a small part in what Richard did,
Yes.
about based on the story of the boy who was killed outside the Burlington Hotel.
That's right. Annabelle's. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, Jack Raynor, this young actor, was playing the main actor, and like literally, like Lenny had all these young actors kind of down in British Bay for a while. He did a load of improvisation with them, and he worked with them, for a long time. And they just loved working with
This is
Lenny.
offset, was it?
Pardon?
Offset.
This was way before they started filming. This was
All
like
right.
work that he was doing with the actors
Yeah.
to develop the parts and to work on the script and to become familiar with each other.
Oh,
So
interesting.
he
Yeah.
created this community. So by the time I was out, as I say, for a couple of days, I was playing the boy who was killed. Sam Keeley was the actor who subsequently went on to has become a hugely successful actor. He was just in that series Task, and he was also one of the main characters in Kin. He played Viking in Kin with the shaved
Oh,
head.
yes.
And so there was Sam, there was Jack Raynor, there was a whole load of really talented young actors.
Hmm.
And you could see that they were just literally buzzing because they were starting to make working on a really interesting movie, but also they were working with Lenny Abramson.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
Lenny, you could see that Lenny was kind of giving them their wings,
Hmm.
and they were that you could see that what he was getting from them in front of camera was just extraordinary. They were just, and then obviously we had Paul Mescal. So
Yeah.
when I look back on Adam and Paul, I realized, yes, here was an extraordinary talent, and yeah, it was a very special experience, very special experience.
Do you know, isn't it funny because as a complete outsider,
Yeah,
you always think of directors as kind of bullies and, dictators and all this
yeah,
sort of stuff in the old sort of style.
yeah.
But in fact, it's the absolute opposite, where it's nurturing relationships and it's nurturing talent, and
Well, I mean,
that is the gift.
well, I have to say at the same time, there's you always hear the stories. I heard stories about theater directors who were tyrants and
Yeah.
also film and TV directors, and they're out there. I
Oh,
had very brief brushes with several.
did
I'm
you?
glad they were brief because I've known actors whose career was very badly damaged
Hmm.
by having worked with directors who basically ground them into dust.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and
So is there not a trip advisor for actors? Don't work with him
there
or
is a touch
her.
of, yeah, there is that. But even like on a sort of a in the sort of the starry heights of
Yeah,
Hollywood. I mean, you
sure.
have famously people like who comes to mind, like what was his name, Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
Now Stanley Kubrick, apparently, I was listening to an interview with somebody recently, or maybe it was a documentary, just saying that like that scene where Jack Nicholson comes through the door with the axe,
Yes.
Johnny's home, or whatever that line is.
Jeez, you do that well.
Here's Johnny. They did, I think, something like 65 or 70 or 80 takes of that. That went on for days. And
Really?
apparently the actor who played his wife, Shelley Duvall,
Mhm.
was, I don't know, she was mentally distraught and was completely, it ruined her. She said, because of how the demands he made on her.
Yeah.
So you got this amazing movie that
Yes.
everybody remembers. Jack, it didn't affect Jack. Jack was this, already a star, but
Yeah.
apparently it destroyed Shelley Duvall. So you want to be with certain directors. You want to be up very, very early in the morning. You want to be in. You want to be in, and you want to.
Yeah.
Ideally, you probably would have done quite a few years of therapy to be in good mental, to be able to put very strong boundaries down around them. You
Yes.
know,
Yes. Yes.
because they would sort of, some of them, they could be very, I would imagine, incredibly demanding. But I've been very fortunate. I haven't, well, he's dead now, obviously, but I have, like, I've worked with some big names, but they've all proved to be gentlemen. I mean, Joel Schumacher
Mm.
on Veronica Guerin was an absolute gentleman, a wonderful
Yeah.
director, and again, a nurturer.
Sure. Yeah.
Somebody who's basically, welcome to the set. here we are. Isn't this great? We're making a movie. Have fun.
Yeah.
We'll do the work. We work hard, but I've cast you, and I really want you to be as good as you can be. And when you have that atmosphere on a set,
Yes.
it's a pleasure. It's a pure pleasure.
Okay. Um, David, at this point, before we
Yeah.
get onto the art, which we must do,
Right.
time is moving on. I want to show people a clip of various parts that you've played. So let's just sit back for a while and just have a look at that.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Where did you get it, lads?
Just had it is all.
Yeah, we just had it, like, and now we want to get rid of it, We robbed it.
Very good. And, who did you rob it from?
Nowly.
Good luck, lads.
No, it's cool, but I mean.
Nowley would burn me to the ground if he found that here. See yous later, lads.
But Kitzer, you must know someone.
I know loads of people.
Yeah, but someone to take it, it's worth money. Please.
All right. But if I ever hear a word back about this, you'll have the living shite kicked out of yous. Understand?
Understand.
That living shy.
That day, Isaiah urged us to fight our way out of Egypt, and we answered the call and gave it a lash.
Hold it, lads. Now, you see, Walter, it's club policy to rotate team duties on the day so that, everyone can have a fair share of the spoils.
The spoils?
Yeah, well, the last time, Speedy got a hat-trick.
Yeah, that was one in each half.
Tosh eventually managed to get one. Robbo got a header. Bubbles, a direct free. Virgil, his volley was an own goal, but yeah, I mean, it was so good we had to take it for ourselves. and hold on, I normally get to play centre forward for the last 15 minutes.
Oh, that'll be no problem, Danny.
And they give us oranges at half time.
And we send them a mass card every Christmas.
Well, quality jerseys all the same.
Yeah, quality jerseys, thanks a lot, mate.
What do you say, Robbo?
Everybody fucking beats them.
Yeah, but this Sunday, we'll bleed bury them!
I know, not this Sunday you won't.
We fucking will!
No, this Sunday they're gonna win.
Says who?
Says me.
How so, Walter?
Because you're gonna let them.
How much would you say was in there? I'm no expert on this stuff. What we could do with would be one of those little weighing things they have. I suppose it'd be digital these days.
There's no need to go through all this, surely. You frightened the life out of the lad. What more do you want?
I hear you're off to the States next year, is that right? On the J1 visa. That's a great opportunity, Cal. Working in the United States of America. You must be proud of him. You're aware that possession of drugs is a criminal offence?
Sure, you're not going to charge him.
Ah, just leave it, will you?
For a little bit of grass or whatever it is.
And I suppose you know they won't let you in with a criminal record.
Do you want to wreck his whole future? He'll be stuck in this place
With the rest of us peasants, huh?
Please, let him go.
All right. So look, let's move on to the art. Now you say that you only really started painting about 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have to point out before we go any further that there is a painting above your head that I recognize. And I recognize it because I actually saw it, maybe as it was being finished or something, in Lorcan Walsh's studio.
Right.
And I remember saying, who's that guy? I think I recognize him.
Yeah.
And he mentioned you. And I think that's the first time that your name really came up in my sort of consciousness outside of acting per se.
Yeah.
But anyway, 10 years ago, you took this up. Did you do it for a particular reason? You know, what was it something that kind of helped you wind down in the acting world or something like that?
Well, you said there, in your introduction about actors who paint, and you mentioned downtime.
Yeah.
I think what happened with me was because like I was doing theater for about 25, 30 years nonstop.
Yeah.
And then in my sort of early to mid 40s, maybe even late 40s, I started to kind of wind down a little bit. I realized that I didn't quite have the stamina that I
Yes.
used to. And I was very privileged that I always was getting offered plenty of theater.
Hmm.
But I used to love literally going from show to show. I would rehearse a show, gladly rehearse a show during the day and perform at night. What they call a 3-session day. So I'd
Right.
go into work in the morning, I'd do it, I'd work on a particular play, and then I'd go
Mhm.
straight to the theater, grab a sandwich, maybe have a half an hour nap or lie down, and then up onto the stage. It's like I was doing that from my early 20s till my sort of mid 40s, mid to late 40s.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I came off a tour in America. I was doing the play by the Western World with the Abbey. We had a 10-month tour,
Mm.
and maybe it's something akin to footballers' knees and cartilage beginning to wear. I
Yes.
suddenly realized, I was feeling it a lot more. I decided I'm going to have to do something with all this excess energy, this theater
Yeah.
energy. And
Sure.
that was when I came across this lady, Pramila
Mm.
Shaw, at the art fair. When I was talking to Honor Heffernan,
Yeah.
and she said, oh, so I phoned her up and she said, oh, come to a class.
Mm.
And she said, it's about the painting, but you'll find that it's much more than painting. You'll find that it's very. I think you, as an actor, you start bringing a sensibility to the painting
Interesting.
that is coming from the acting. And I was going, how perceptive, but is
Mm.
that really the case? Because
Yes.
I felt like a fish out of water or whatever.
Mm.
But in time, as I stuck at it with her encouragement and the way she was kind of helped me to develop my relationship with painting, I started to realize, yes, this is a perfect, companion for an actor who needs to keep expressing himself creatively, but who isn't working, all the time.
All the time on it. Yeah. Yeah. Show us a few
Yeah.
examples of your work,
Okay.
please.
Now I'm in the middle of a series, which I didn't realize was going to be a series, but and maybe I haven't figured out how it connects, but I'm pretty sure it's connected to my creative connection with costume as an actor,
Yeah.
particularly having worn many costumes over the years and being fascinated by fabric and the
Yeah.
relationship with a costume and kind of getting into character,
Mhm.
and then realizing that actually, when I reflected on my childhood, I started doing paintings of my mother. Actually, the first one, my mother was in a nursing home for several years, and I remember on the back door she had a coat, a dressing gown, a blue dressing gown, and I tried to paint that, and because again I thought it was like it captured the essence of my mother, and this was a dressing gown she'd had for years.
Yes.
And there was something about the coat I thought that was the way it hung on the door. So I started to paint that. And it didn't quite work out. And then I started painting over it. This red coat emerged. And I had it hanging at a group exhibition in Ranelagh, in the Ranelagh Arts Festival a few years ago. And I got great interest. It didn't sell, but I had it hanging in Grogan's. And about a month ago, I got a call from Grogan's and said, the red coat, David, that you have in the wall, it's sold. And I thought, oh, that's great. But the red coat for me was, and I realized there was a story around it, and I didn't know what the story was. It was only when I started painting and looked at it, I realized what it was. So it relates to my childhood,
Yes.
particular story. So I had an audio clip I have a little website, and I had an audio clip explaining it. And I thought, well, that's interesting the way that emerged. That it was related to a piece of clothing that almost had a little kind of a memory bubble.
Sure. Yes.
And I have about half a dozen of them in progress at the moment.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. But the one that I'm going to show you,
yeah,
is one of a denim jacket.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I was I went to I was very I was big into music. I think I referred to it earlier in my teens.
Did.
I played
Yeah.
drums in bands in Dublin, punk bands.
Mm-hmm.
And I, knew a lot of people who were on the scene at the time, including
Yeah.
a burgeoning U2 and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
We were all young musicians in Dublin at the time, and it was a level playing field for a very short while. But
Yes.
so I went to a gig called in the Clash in Trinity in 1977,
Yeah.
and I realized I wanted to dress in a kind of a quite as outlandish a way as possible. And I had these wraparound day glow sunglasses that I bought in the supermarket. I had a white shirt and a sort of a narrow tie. My father's old winkle picker shoes, drain pipe jeans, and then I got this jacket, this denim jacket. I threw bleach, and I had these colored inks that I used for calligraphy in art class, and I splashed them all with ink.
Yeah.
Anyway, I came across the jacket in a box, and I thought I'd thrown this out.
Yeah. Yes.
And I had it. I just took it out of the box and I put it on a hanger.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, "Oh, that's interesting. I wonder, is there something in that that would be good to paint?" So I painted it, and I found painting it again. It helped me to both remember that experience, but also what that represented to me at the time, and the fact of my relationship with creativity.
Interesting.
So that, like the red coat, which had a very particular memory from childhood, I realized, and again, because, as I say, of all the costumes I've worn over the years as well, so I've started to think, oh yeah, that relationship with your clothes and with costume.
Yeah.
So there's pardon the pun, but there's definitely a thread there.
No, there's a thread there. Well said. Yes, yes. And a very interesting one too. Can you hold it up just fully?
Oh yeah, sure.
Camera for a sec. I'll superimpose it anyway. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, lovely. And do you paint in acrylics or oil?
Acrylic.
Acrylic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to another one.
Yeah. So the next one is a still life of a suitcase.
Yes.
Now, my father had this little case that he used to bring when he went traveling.
Yes.
And he was in the house, and he was a devout Kerry supporter, being from the kingdom, and he'd disappear off to Killarney every year to watch the Munster final. And so we'd leave him off to the station with this little case, and I decided I would paint that. So that's what that is. Yeah.
So you've kept all these items, have you, as well?
Well, I mean, my mother died about 8 years ago.
Yes.
And we sold the house subsequently. And we had to, go through everything in the house. And my sister and myself, well, we got, we let most of it go, but we did keep certain things that we had an attachment to. So, so among other things, the case is in the attic.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay, lovely.
So then, this is just a poppy field.
Yes.
My mother was an avid gardener, and she seemed to be obsessed with poppies for some reason, and she herself started painting flowers, and I thought, well, the day I started painting flowers will be a cold day in hell. For whatever, I just thought that's her thing.
Yes.
First of all, the idea that I would ever go back to painting seemed like a distance, impossibility. But anyway, very much my mother's memory of my mother. She had she had a great collection of poppies in her garden. So
yeah. Do you know what I love about your work, David, is that it's such personal expression of who you are and what means things to you, rather than let's go out and paint a nice little still life or a landscape. These all have deep meanings for you.
And I think and Alan, I think really, and it's what my art teacher imparted to me, as I think I referred to, was she saw the link very clearly as an actor, but what I would bring to painting. And then I realized, it's not just to my acting, it's to all the sources of my inspiration for characters and for work that I might have done, in terms of research, that an awful lot of it comes out of the unconscious, and a lot of it would come from childhood and relationships with with parents, neighbors, colleagues, friends, you name it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I realized that there's a direct link back to that. There's a kind of a very interesting simpatico there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Lovely. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know if it'll show up. This is a ship in heavy storm.
Yeah.
Now, when I left, I have a very strong connection with the sea. Two of my uncles had very strong connection with the sea. One, my eldest, her eldest brother was a merchant seaman in the British Navy during the war, and he subsequently, had boats. And this other man, her other brother, had a fleet of trawlers. And when my first job when I left school, I asked could I get a job with my uncle, and he put me to work on a trawler in Howth.
Oh, really?
So I became upset, and he had actually done a lot of salvage. He salvaged boats.
Oh, yes.
Boats.
All right.
And one boat that I remember seeing as a child was off Hook Head, and he'd taken footage of it with a Super 8, and it was this ship that was floundering on the rocks in this green, wild-looking sea that he was basically in the process of trying to refloat.
Yeah.
And I saw this photograph of a ship in trouble off Hook Head in the paper, and it just reminded me of that. So that's that.
All right. Okay. Very good.
This is my impression of the Paris Opera House in rain, in mist and rain.
Yeah.
Like a lot of creative people, I'm absolutely besotted with Paris.
Yes.
And I visited Paris as a child. My father took us all to Paris as children.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with Paris then. And I always had a fascination with a number of buildings, but for some reason, the Opera House kind of attracted me. The fact that the history around the Opera House, and that apparently, I don't know if that's the actual cafe, but Oscar Wilde used to, he lived in a hotel close by, and he used to have coffee in a little cafe opposite the Opera House. So I loved that connection as well with Oscar. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Beautiful painting.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay.
And the last one I have is O'Connell Street. And that's
wow.
I got that from a photo. So I grew up as a child in the 60s, right? As a very young child. And I remember being brought into town, and I think, Nelson's Pillar had been just about blown up at that stage. But we used to be brought in to see films even as children. And, in the winter, it'd be dark. Yeah. And you see all the neon in O'Connell Street. So you'd be going into places like, obviously, the Savoy, the Ambassador, the Metropole.
Yeah.
I saw this photograph, and I just was kind of like, again, drawn to the memories from childhood of all these, colors and the traffic and the neon. So that's where that comes from.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's bringing a really true meaning to the word. Every picture tells a story. Yeah. And in your case, it's your story. And
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah. Well done. Well done.
I was out one day, was it last year? I was walking the dog, and I met Miriam Kelly, who is David Kelly's daughter. Yes. And I was telling her I was painting. And she said, "Oh, Dad," because I had a great relationship with David. She said, "Oh, Dad would be so happy to hear that," because he was so passionate about his painting. And he'd go on location and he'd bring his sketchbook. And she said, "Do you know what? Give me your address." She says, "I'll send you one of Dad's paintings." And she sent me this watercolor of David, this beautiful watercolor.
Wonderful.
So, again, that was very inspiration to know that, I'm not alone. There's so many people who are creatives, and as we now know, actors, who have this as another avenue of expression.
Exactly. Yeah. Fascinating. Listen, David, thank you so much, and thank you
welcome.
For your time. And I suppose I should ask you before you go, what are you working on at the moment? Is there anything in the pipeline that you're allowed to talk about?
I had the great pleasure. Again, what's wonderful about what's hardest about being an actor, and I suppose most people would be terrified, the idea that literally once a job finishes, you're back to square one again.
Yes.
I got a call to do an interview with the director, and I didn't look at the details. And when I looked at it, and I got the chance to look at the email, I realized it was with the German director Werner Herzog.
Okay.
And
I think I've heard of him.
So I did my audition.
Don't judge me.
I did my Werner Herzog. Yeah. One of the most famous directors, I suppose independent directors of his generation, and he famously has done films that would have taken years to make. You know, he went to the jungle in South America to make a film called Fitzcarraldo, and it took years. And it was about a man, an Irish man, who was obsessed with opera, and he wanted to build an opera house in the jungle. So Werner Herzog made a film about that man, and the actor who played him was Klaus Kinski. And there's actually a documentary online. And you look at the whole subject, you think this man is insane. Werner Herzog, this man. And so that was just one of his projects. He famously he's made many documentaries. He made a documentary called Grizzly Man about this man who loved this, had a relationship, thought he had this very close relationship with grizzly bears that went on for a period, and eventually the bears ate him. So Werner Herzog came to Dublin earlier this year, and he made a movie that he wrote, co-produced, directed. He stayed in a house down the road with his crew, and I had the privilege of working on that film, and I have to say, it was extraordinary. So that film will be out next year. The working title is Booking Fastered.
Yes. Okay.
And it has Rooney Mara and her sister Kate played the central characters. Donald Gleeson, Orlando Bloom, and David Hurley.
Oh, fantastic! Not necessarily in that order. Not necessarily in that order.
All right.
And listen, do you think it'll be called something else, or was that genuinely a working title? Could it be the actual title?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Werner.
Oh no, okay.
I'd say it could well change. I would say you could. It could be. He could decide to translate it into Irish.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know.
He sounds like some character.
I hope I make the final cut. That's the main thing. Someone said to me years ago, I said I was very disappointed that I lost a few scenes in this movie. I was actually the Veronica Guerin movie, and they said this friend of mine lived in Hollywood. He said, Dave, let me ask you a few questions. You got the part, great. The film was made, yeah. You were in it, and you got paid.
That's it. That's it. That's all that matters.
All right.
All right. Take care of yourself.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye-bye.